Well, hello everybody. This is and welcome back after our August break. This is the first of our third series. Is it third series? Maybe fourth of Quaker Talks. And today it's going to be Ray being interviewed by, oh dear, Patsy isn't here. Patsy's been called away. So Patsy and Ray prepared a nice list of questions, which I have in my hand and Ray has as well, so he can remind himself. So anyway, it's the lovely Ray Bray. How would you define the topic? Are we talking about your early life or questions in general?
It's
Willing Ray.
and a idea that Patsy and I had for knowledge about differing friends. So we hope we can encourage more friends to come on and be gently questioned by someone else like Patsy. Patsy, I hope, will be the genial question asker, and it is as we have the this month all set out. It is something which we will do as the months go by, so it doesn't become, this week we're speaking to someone else, but other topics will come along. Does that sound like not like just me rambling away happily?
Sounds interesting.
Let's see how it goes. So this is the pilot of a side project that we're running within the Quaker Talks. So look, so I've only just printed this off because I joined this, so I'm substituting for Patsy as question master, but these are the questions that Patsy and Ray. And the first question, Ray tells me, is wrong. So the first question is, what was it like growing up in London in the post-war years? Only you didn't grow up in London, did you, Ray? So it's a sort of double question. Where did you grow up and what was it like?
Right. Well, I grew up in the delightful seaside town of Eastbourne. Eastbourne is on the south coast. It's near Brighton, and it's where a lot of old people came to live and retire and this type of thing. We as young people called it Costa Geriatrica, which I suppose gives it that type of delightful the thing you think of, had little old ladies who spent their declining years in hotels, which they lived in, usually with a dog or something, cat or something like that, but growing up, it was good. I had free life, basically. I had lots of brothers and sisters, 3 brothers and 3 sisters. So there's quite a large house in a 3-bedroom house, 3-bedroom council property. And South Downs, which I used to run about with my brothers and build camps, camp out for the night, that type of thing, and it was go to the seaside. And people used to say to me later on in life, "Oh, the seaside, I bet you used to spend lots of time there." I said, it was just there. It was part of where I was. It's like people who lived in London. "Oh, London. Did you go to so and so and so and so and so and so?" No, it was it was part of your life, which you had. But Yes, I remember it was great affection till I was about 16.
Right.
And then there was not a lot to do. And I became a very, very serious, at 16, a very serious socialist, very left wing and very, but why isn't everybody? And I'm told I became a bit of a prig when it comes to things like that.
Oh. I'm wondering how you become a socialist in Eastbourne. But it's great that you had such a big family. Would you say that your siblings were the biggest influence in your life, and how did you get on with them?
Oh, yes, yes. I fought with my brothers. My brother nearest to me, Roy, he was, we used to fight like mad. But now we are the best of friends. And we would do anything for each of us. You know, we're very close. He's married, lives in Crawley, to a woman from the Philippines.
Right. So
she's a lovely lady, but no, my elder brother was something I remember about him was that he had a Triumph 750 motorbike and leathers, and he was a rocker. He was, you know, there was that type of thing, you know. And vague memories of falling off the back of it, which was which I remember quite hurt about today. But there you are. I must have bounced well because I got up and seemed to be reasonably happy and hadn't broken anything or anything like that. But 3 sisters who were all older than me. So when friends used to come round to the house occasionally, my sisters would dash around the house. Sometimes, I don't know if the word is inappropriately dressed, but scantily dressed, because it was their home. That's where they lived, you know. So they did a lot like that, and which used to shock a few friends who would come round and say, well, "Your sister's got, yes, she lives here. She's allowed to," you know, which was quite remarkable, quite accepting of life, and you know, and we grew up, you know, knowing quite early, talked about sexual things, you know, that because it was there, you know, and you learn not to be embarrassed very quickly about those type of things, because the house was small and it was, you grew up in it. We had a garden and an allotment which we all had to work in to produce the food.
Right.
Because, you know, we were working class people, couple, family, and money was tight. Money was extremely tight, you know, and so you had to do lots of things. And father was a serious Marxist, and believed, you know, that I don't know what he'd have thought about me becoming a Quaker. I'm sure we'd have had lots of serious discussions about that, because, you know, to him being, you know, religion being the opium of the people and all that lot, you know. So,
Right.
but mother was a Labour Party member along with father, and worked a lot with the community and all that lot, you know. So lots of meetings in the house, lots of us being shoved into our bedrooms occasionally, or me sitting in the kitchen reading a book because the lounge was being used for a meeting. Because yeah, that's grown up early life for me, you know, knowing and accepting other people, other ideas, you know. One thing which I will say, which I've always found as being amusing, is that up until I was 16, you know, Sunday lunch. It was started by my mother about 9 o'clock in the morning because they're so laborious. And it was, if you weren't at Sunday lunch, you had to have a very good reason why you were missing it. Because it would be a time when all the family ate together. And Father took great delight, enormous delight, in setting up arguments, or as he calls them, serious discussion, light discussions over the lunchtime table, and which you participated in. But if you had 40 arguments, you were shot down by the rest of the family if you've got your answer, if you've got your argument wrong. And that's where I learned being able to the cut and thrust of discussion and getting your facts right before you open your mouth and made a fool of yourself. So these days, that's where I get my enjoyment of putting forward a good argument.
Would you say that was that the foundation of your becoming a socialist? Obviously, your father being an Marxist gives you direction. Yeah,
very much so. That the fun we had occasionally of if some foolish Tory man during the election times came to our door, Mother would find great delight in haranguing him for a while before being pulled away by one of her children saying, "Mother, leave the poor man alone."
So were your siblings politically active, or was it just you and your dad?
My sisters not so much. My brothers sometimes. It depended on their agenda. Yeah. But Father and I were the two more I suppose had the intellectual rigor to be able to go forward. But anyway, I think.
Sorry.
Next question.
Yeah, well, I've got the question here. It almost seems like a non sequitur if you have a Marxist dad. Was religion much of a feature in your family? No, that's.
No, Mother was an occasional Church of England person, where occasionally we would be dragged to Christmas, the thing at Christmas, the Christmas carol service, and expected to sing as well.
Yeah.
So I think most friends here would remember the Christmas carols which they could sing. Quite a number of people would remember that there were carols which we sang. Oh, little town of Bethlehem and things like that.
But you weren't going to church as a family or anything like that?
Hark the heralds. And no, as I say, Mother would go occasionally because she enjoyed it, because it was nice.
Yes, I was going to say, if anybody wants to jump in, go right ahead. So here's Hattie. Give us an example of doing that.
Well, how did you learn the words to the Christmas carols? Did you have to go to assembly at school or something?
Yeah, assemblies at school were nearly a 3-line whip type of thing. You'd have to go there unless you had a note from your parents saying that, could be excused because you are Jehovah's Witness or something like that, or Muslim or
Marxist.
I can't remember any Muslims at my school. There were any people of other religion than C of E, really. No, though Father said, that services like that are a good opportunity to persuade people not to be religious.
So what did you like and what did you dislike about school?
School, I didn't like school too much. I was dyslexic. Therefore, I was less inclined to be the more scholastic subject, to writing things down, actually producing a producing stuff, which was, I remember a teacher in a secondary school getting hold of a piece of paper and hanging it up in front of me and said, "That might be good, Bray, if I could read it." And I'd spent, hours and hours doing that. And so because of my actions towards him, the parents were called, and I was in the headmaster's office because I thumped the teacher on the chest.
Gosh.
And that was
what did he do to take you to that point?
Because I'd spent hours doing this piece of work, and and he dismissed it out of hand. And that was me going, "Look, pal."
Great.
And father had to come to the teachers, the headmasters thing, and this thing was put forward, and he said yes, he agreed that it wasn't a good idea, but the teacher had to take some responsibility for that. And the headmaster said, yes, maybe, but you can't go around thumping people. And I said, yeah, okay, it was a little moronic, but there you go. And the headmaster said, and another thing, he said, your son constantly argues with the teachers. And my father looked at him and said, yes, good, isn't it?
Great, yeah. So you obviously learnt well from your Sunday lunches.
Yeah, but yeah, I enjoyed things like drama, music, and that type of thing. The arts I enjoyed much more than the basic thing of sitting there and listen to the teacher tell you facts and not being able to, as they do today, more interact with class, kind of type of things like that. Now read chapter 42. No, didn't like that too much.
Talking of reading, and given that you said you're dyslexic, and given that we know that you're heavily involved in books these days, how did that fit in with being dyslexic? And were the books that you're especially fond of, did your reading go in a particular direction in school and out of school? Was it a big thing for you?
I'm an avid reader, as you know, as everybody knows, poetry lover and all this type of thing, But that wasn't the case. My dyslexia was, as the educational psych told me, spelling and putting words into context, leaving words out of a sentence. And I would read a sentence and think that word is in there, but it's not. And actually spelling things, I was terrible at it, and as someone once said, when I said something about how that affected me and lots of other dyslexics, was that if you spell a word, you need to spell a word, to non-dyslexic people, you see that word in your brain. It's there. You could it goes like that. But with me and numbers of dyslexics is, the word, but trying to spell it is a blank in your head. It's not there. And no matter how much you try and look at the word and try and spell the word, it still looks a jumble of letters. And that is most frustrating.
Wow.
And spell checker was my absolute friend when I went to university.
Right. Wow. That's really interesting. I don't think I've heard anybody talk about dyslexia in terms of visually not seeing the word and not being able to make up the letters. So that's quite an insight for me. So if I say antelope, how would you spell antelope? What happens when you try and spell a word?
No, it doesn't. It's not there. I know the word. I can see the word, if it's spelt down somewhere, but sitting here trying to spell it.
Okay, really interesting.
It's I remember when I was working with a number of children who had the same problem as I, and a small boy actually throw a dictionary across the room, and I said, "What was that?" And he said, "But you have to," and said, "Great, try and get his word. You have to know what the word looks like to be able to spell it." And it's no good looking through a dictionary because it's not there. And he got angry. Now I can understand him getting angry. But anyway, that's it. Books I read. Sci-fi, of course, Asimov, all the classic science fiction ones, and lots of political stuff, of course, lots of things about people. Here's a thing. I never read Das Kapital.
Does anyone ever read Das Kapital?
My dad.
Oh yeah.
Yes, he was one of those that read it, and a lot of his friends did as well. They would have arguments over it. That interpretations of certain lines and all this lot. Was nearly like interpretations from the Bible. Yeah, but no. No, I've always loved books, and I've always been able to drift off into one, and I could spend hours. I used to spend hours sitting in chairs in the home, just reading stuff, sci-fi. And my father was very anti Enid Blyton, and he said that she was such a cliche, kind of person that why anybody would want to read her. And if he saw me reading one of those, he would be very cross. So I never read. I used to read like the Eagle comic and stuff
Oh yeah.
And that type of thing, that was my required reading. With my pocket money, used to buy me a comic, but I had to work for the pocket money, I tell you.
Yes, I don't yet get a picture of where your interests were going and what you felt you might be led into, or what was coming out of your education. So what did you do when you left school, and how did school lead into that, or didn't it?
Well, I left school and I worked at a couple of factory jobs, which were interminably boring.
Did you stay on, or did you leave school early, or what?
I left school at 15, with no qualifications whatsoever, and very happy to leave it. It was a sausage machine, basically. If you could read and write adequately, you were left alone. The people who had problems were dealt with, and the people who were very bright were encouraged, because this was still the times of the 11 plus, and as you remember, times like that, which I didn't even take, so I knew I was going to fail it. I knew I'd fail it, So I left school, worked at a couple of factories and a supermarket, and then decided that the life in Eastbourne wasn't for me, and went off to London to squat and become a hippie at 17.
Right. And so there's a question about your friends at school and friends at work and the friendships that you must have made going to London. Did you have in making friends? Did you have many friends, or were you sort of in your own head and finding your own way?
At school, I had a few friends. There was a group of us really who were the ones who wanted just to stand around and chat about books and meaning of life and stuff like that, which 15, 16, 14, 15-year-olds used to in my day. I don't know what they do now because I'm out of the loop, obviously. But yeah, and so I had a few friends, and we were the kind of go away, leave us alone. No, we don't want to run around. We don't want to fight. We don't. No. Nearly the kind of the I don't know how to put that, but that's the ones I had there. Used to go to youth clubs with them, things like that. Going to London, you kind of fell in with a certain group of people. I was part of the hippiedom bit, where you club together for safety more safety and understanding more than anything else, and you had the same ideas of peace, love, and terrible poetry. Because that was part of it, and the going around and finding out stuff that you need how to live, and make sure you kept your sleeping bag and dumpster diving and stuff like that.
How did you find a squat, and how did you support yourself while you're in London?
Dumpster diving a lot of the time, and the few occasional job, right, which you used to get the kind of the cash in hand bit, and looking after places for the occasional landlord who wanted, if his place was going to be squatted by the right type of people who wouldn't trash the place, and know that within a few months that he might want his place back, so you'd have to find somewhere else, and it's that type of thing. We used to get occasionally paid to look after a place, and make sure that the wrong type of people didn't get in, right. But also, working in shops occasionally which sold clothes or something like that. And with me, occasionally it was books. It was secondhand bookshops and things like that, which, because I knew about books, I could actually do that type of thing, get paid. But a lot of the food came free, basically. It was, as I say, dumpster diving, a lot of it, which was you could get vegetables, bread, and that type of stuff from, and some friends would have herbs and spices. Life was on the cheap type of thing, and you didn't go to places like King's Road for clothes and Carnaby Street and all that life. Too expensive. That was for what was called the demi-monde, those who had the money for the weekend and could kind of pose around in their clothes, Those were for living with, So you had your good clothes, which were nice, which was kind of, I had a velveteen jacket and loom pants, And I thought I looked the business. I probably looked horrendous, but it was one of those times which we all remember.
So you're in a way describing yourself as a sort of bit of a hippie dropout, but what is that you had to be quite resourceful to actually do.
Yeah.
You might not have thought of that, but so there's, it's not formal education, but there's a learning in that. What would you say? What did you enjoy about it, and what did you learn? What did you, looking back on it, how did that change you? How did that form you that time?
Well, it made me less of a prig when it came to politics, learning about people, that not everybody believes what I believe in, and not everybody is going to come see my way of looking, even if I argue about it. One has to accept there are different people in life, there are different ways of living, type of thing, and having friendships that matter, friendships that you can rely upon, people, because if you're squatting with someone, you have to rely sometimes on the people you are living with, that they're not going to rip you off, or they're not going to run away in the night with your favorite boots or something,
But they do.
Yes, it happened. It did happen. I can't say it didn't, but wearing my caftan and having somewhere to wash, having other friends who had properties or local swimming baths or something like that, where you could actually keep reasonably clean, because I had quite long hair, so I had to keep that clean and tidy, and would go to friends like that. And I remember one delightful day when I was round at friends who had married and had children and all this lot, and I was round there, and one of the little girls, I had quite a long beard then still, one of the little girls actually plaited the beard and put ribbons in it. So I looked an absolute sight. And I know walking down the Caledonian Road with friends, and people laughing like mad as I was walking down. I go, "Ooh, yeah, I'm the business." It was lovely going into a pub called The Spice of Life, and people looked at me, cheered as I came in, and I thought, at me being the ego that I've got, said, "I'm here," and it was a wonderful time.
It sounds enjoyable. Is there anything that you didn't like or that you regret from that time? Anything you'd change?
Some people who for no apparent reason, hippies annoyed them, made them angry, and I couldn't understand that. That to me was rather sad. Police who constantly searched you, and we got so used to that, that we used to leave our what one friend still nowadays calls Dewbridge, hidden back where we squatted. Marijuana man, madam.
Dewbridge. Never heard of it called that.
It was or the doings, or that, and if you searched for it, and if you're foolish enough to have any on you, it's your fault. Your friends have told you about this type of thing, and going into some shops, you were dodgy. You were here to nick stuff, even though you weren't. Of course, stuff used to go missing from shops. That other people did it, and I can put my hand on my heart and on and anywhere in my anatomy and say, "Not me, governor," because it was someone else's stuff. And I thought, we used to think, if we're not nicking someone else's stuff, we're not going to nick someone else's. If we're not going to do it, we expect other people not to do it to us, type of thing, which was a bit naive, but there you go. People say that the hippies, it was a type of life, love, peace, and everything to everybody. No, you still had some really horrible people around who were nasty to everybody, and that you heard the name Rackman, which had become part of the nearly part of the language nowadays, but he was a real person, and a really, really nasty person who, if you were squatting around there, or even if you paid rent to one of his bully boys, if he didn't like you, him and the dogs used to come round. Not a nice man at all, He got arrested and sent to prison for grievous GBH, but even nowadays he is known as the phrase goes in that respect.
But I got a question here. I was looking at it and thinking, I'm not sure how this is going to be relevant, but you brought it in. And it's, did animals play much of a part in your life? And it sounds like at least you had Peter Rackman's dogs, but...
When I was young, I was given an animal. It was a little Dachshund. I was, 7 or 8, and I loved it. Herman, I loved it.
You love being an animal?
No, having an animal.
Oh, having.
Yeah, I had a little Dachshund. Yeah.
And you looked after it, and it was your...
Oh yeah, it's called Herman, and it could run as fast as me. So we would run down the road with a dog. My brother had a cat called which he called Ozymandias. King of Kings was his cat, nicknamed Ozzy, basically. But Ozzy used to lay on my chest while we was watching telly, and we both eat cheesy Wotsits.
Yeah, cats rule, don't they?
Oh,
definitely.
My brother loved Ozzy.
Yeah, cats rule definitely in our house. They ruled the dog. They ruled us.
So, you got interested again. This is the other mistake in the questioning. It says, when did you become interested in the teaching career? But I gather that you were working with kids as a psychologist. And how did that come about?
I started working with kids at a youth club, which I was in the senior youth club leader. Saw me in a pub a couple of times and said, you work well with people. And I said, yeah, people are okay. People are fun. No problem. People are fun. And he said, come and volunteer at my place. I need someone like you. So I thought, maybe. So I went there and enjoyed it immensely. Enjoyed actually working with the more youth on the edge type of thing, the more disturbed youth. I was the one who would go and chat to them and do various things with. We once went to the cinema, and they said, what do you do? I remember one of them saying, so what do you do when you're not here, Ray? And I said, well, I go to the cinema, and I have been known to go to the ballet. And the ballet, no professor. And I said, are they? And I said to this lad, see, if you're a man of the ballet, I said, you go across the stage and you lift your ballerina up. And I said, go across there. And if Gina allows you, try lifting her up. And I said, Gina, can we borrow you for a moment? She said, we won't, because she liked me for some strange reason. But I said, Barry here is going to try and lift you up. And she thought, looked around and said, only because you asked me. And he couldn't, of course, because can't do that. And so I took him to see what was it? Yeah, Romeo and Juliet on the cinema, everything, and they loved it. And at the end scene, if you remember, where Romeo is dead and Juliet awakes and she sees he's taken all the poison. And you've taken all the poison, I cannot choke you down. Every East End big lad at a man had something in his eye. He wasn't crying, he just had something in his eye. He didn't know what it was, but yeah, Ray wins.
Right.
And that was part of it. And he said, the youth worker said, you should work here, get paid to work here. And I said, why don't you apply? I said, you need qualifications to do that. I haven't got any. And he looked at me as if I was stupid and said, well, go and get some then. You're intelligent enough. No, it's going back to school type of thing. No, it's his adult school, mate. Go and do it. And for weeks, he was on at me all the time. Go and do it. Why aren't you doing it? Oh, and you're worse. Things like that. The way I used to talk to children. And so I went to a night school and got a few O's. And with a recommendation from the youth club leader, Sussex University said, okay, come along. And I spent 3.5 glorious years at Sussex University studying psychology.
Right.
And
where were you living then? Were you squatting or living in a student quarters or what?
So I lived in student quarters because Sussex Council paid for me to go to university. And I thought, they're paying me to sit and listen and to argue and to discuss and to be me.
Right.
I was like, as one little lad once said, I was like a pig in shit.
Yeah.
So you were back in Eastbourne or back in Sussex somewhere?
Sussex in Falmouth, in Sussex.
But the youth club was in London?
Yeah. I was still registered as being a resident because I used to go home occasionally to see my mum and my dad. And so I was still residing as still a resident of Eastbourne.
Like voting?
Even though I'd not spent any time there since I was, which was very good of them to pay for me.
Oh, yeah. Them was the good old days, eh?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's a shame. So, yeah, I mean, it's part of what you're describing is a beautifully assisted journey in your life that relied on socialism being implemented in our state systems in some way.
Yeah. I was, to me, it was great. It was something that I always wanted to do.
The structures.
I didn't think I wanted to do. I didn't know where I was going.
But the structures were there, weren't they? Until, the Tories got into power whenever they got into power and destroyed the whole of the further education sector, which was the salvation for intelligent working class children who couldn't, it's funny, couldn't afford for them to go to college. Yeah, they had to get a job, and you did your qualifications in evening school.
Yeah. I know this might sound paranoid, but I believe that was intentional to remove that type of thing.
Keep the peasants in their place so that we've got a good supply of servants. Sorry if I sound cynical.
Yeah. Anyway, that meant going from there onto other things, onto work and and
how did you transition into work? Did you go back to the youth club scene, or once you'd finished your 3 years, what happened?
3 years, 6 months, because I did a part bolt-on thing, which was studying in aberrant behavior and non-verbal behavior, which was a course which lasted for about 6 months afterwards, which I took. And
why did you
that was self-funding. I had to find the money for that, which meant working like mad.
So was that because of the children you wanted to be working with, that you wanted that extra?
Yeah. And also I suppose, kind of before that, way before that, I'd actually discovered Friends, Quakerism, and to me, this development forward was where the spirit was leading me. In that sense, it was very much, this is where I'm supposed to be, type of thing. I've really, I've thought about it. I thought that is what happens to me, kind of generally in life now, type of thing. And it's leading to the spirit. But there, yes, I went off and applied for a job in a school for problem children, residential school. And this is where I kind of, as the phrase goes, learnt me trade, because I started at the bottom as a house parent. And cool, blimey, that was a few kind of mental and physical kickings, because disturbed children can be very enormously manipulative, and and there was Ray, gentle, happy hippie, who learnt all his qualifications and didn't think he had a temper. He was a nice, kind, caring, understanding man. Horse feathers. I have a temper. It is sharp, volcanic, and goes, and then drops away as quick as it started. But it's pretty amusing to see, as many young people could have told you, because they knew how to press my buttons.
You must have startled a few children with your eruptions.
It was good, but then that thing happened. I suppose I carry one scar with me, which was before I joined psychology. Before that was that my disastrous love life. And more can be learnt about that if you go back to my talk before of 1966 and all that. You'll see the reasons for that.
Okay, I'll put to that when we post this as a video. I'll put a link to that in. So,
but I will slide over.
So there's a sadness from that effect.
Oh yes, that's very much.
Yeah.
Yes, Hattie.
Did you say your disastrous look-alike?
Love life.
Ah, it was mistranslated.
In your head.
No,
in
the
the
typing.
Oh, really?
typing.
Oh, right. Got
Mm.
the subtitles. Right. I'm not seeing the subtitles. Great.
The
I'm not seeing the subtitles.
Well, when it finally arrives on YouTube, then you can turn YouTube. In fact, you could go to Japan and listen to Ray talking about this in Japanese. But courtesy of YouTube and its computers,
Wow.
words do get missed, as you were saying, Hattie.
Yeah, they're very funny.
Okay.
Sometimes rude.
Right. Any other questions, David?
Well, yeah. Is there anything to finish off with? And you can, I think you might flow these together. Are there any aspects of your life you do differently? So is there anything you'd change? And what do you enjoy doing these days? And how did you get into it?
Life, what would I change? Oh, that's a one which I would have to ponder, because I think maybe have had the experience perhaps in Eastbourne of having that youth worker come and say, encourage you to do that. And my life would have been so radically changed then. And I sometimes think, kind of like, oh, what ifs? What if that happened then? How would my life change in that respect? Because I wouldn't have become a hippie. I'd have gone to the qualification and gone to university at an earlier age. And,
right. Yeah. So you were sort of rattling around for a bit before you found a direction. Yeah. I think that's it. And to conventional education and come in a path but you're allowed to say you wouldn't change anything, because that may have been essential exploration and finding your own way.
Yeah, I think, as I've said, kind of this kind of really spirit-led thing, which I quite honestly believe these days, that we are led to do those things.
I think that's really important that you one of the things that you came across. How did you come across Quakerism, and how did you acquire that sort of approach from it?
I was walking down the road in the and I came across an Anglican Church of England Anglican church, and I remembered when my mum used to take me to stuff like that, and I thought, oh, feeling very spiritual. We used to chat about the spiritual life and kind of the hippie vibes and all this lot, and so I went in there, sat in the back, and the service went on and it finished, and I was sitting there musing on this, and two young people came up, a man and a woman, and the woman was kind of dressed very nicely, and the bloke was wearing a tailor-made suit and all this lot, and the woman looked down at me and smiled and said, do you think this is the place for you? I looked up at her and said, evidently not, and left. And so a couple of weeks later, I was wandering past a Quaker meeting house, and I thought, I've been past here a few times. I've seen them all over the place, so give it a go. So in I wanders through the door, and there's a lady, little old lady, standing at the door, like one of my aunts, kind of small, white-haired, and wearing a floral dress type of thing, And she said, "Hello," and I said, "Hello." And she said, "Have you been here before?" As we do to new people, no. And she gave me some leaflets, and she said, there is no priests and no set service, blah, blah, blah. So I went in there and I sat down. And it was strange because everybody was silent. And nothing was happening. And someone stood up and went, "Yeah." And I went, "Oh, yeah, I can understand that." And at the end of the meeting, everybody shook hands. So I shook hands with this person beside me, on the side of me. And someone said, "Tea, I think." And okay, we went and had a cup of tea. And this woman came up to me and offered me a biscuit and said, "How do you find it?" And we chatted for a while. And she said, "So what do you do?" I don't do a lot. And she said something that my mother had said to me as well. She said, because I was wearing a caftan, and she said, "You look very colourful, dear." And I said, "Oh, thank you very much." And she said, and she talked about, and she gave me some idea of what Quakers do and what, and I said something about, probably said something about how the hippies vibes and all this lot. And we came to an agreement on it. And so I thought, I'm coming in next week. I quite like this. And so I went there and there and there and there. And what I found was that within that space, it didn't force me to, but to not question, to not constantly chat, to not say all these things which I had been used to with friends, going, talking at a mile fast type of thing all the time. And sitting within a Quaker meeting and not doing that all the time. I found that I found that the inner me, the part that made me me. And that's why I've always been coming to Quakers ever since.
You found a way of being. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm afraid I've been a very bad Michael Parkinson, because we'd have been cut off and thrown off the air a couple of minutes ago. But given that we're on Zoom, it's okay. Last question, anyway. What, which I slipped in earlier, but I'll bring it back. What do you most enjoy doing these days?
Reading, chatting to people, definitely going to Quaker meeting.
Right.
So it's very much part of what I am and what I will remain to be. Going to the theatre, going to the cinema, just relaxing with people. Oh, and unfortunately, something which I do occasionally, and I should stop doing so much of, watching junk television.
Great.
Or as one of my brothers calls it, chewing gum for the eyes.
Right. Has anybody got, we've run out of time, but this is a different format, and these are kind of your questions anyway. Does anybody want to add anything or ask a question of Ray? I'm really grateful. It's lovely getting to know you like this, Ray. Hattie.
Again, it's my hearing, maybe. I don't know. Earlier on, you said a phrase called horse feathers, and I've never heard that phrase before.
It comes from the Marx Brothers films. One of the Marx Brothers films.
Right.
And what it means is absolute rubbish.
Yeah.
Posh. Horse feathers.
Oh yeah,
Horses
I got the meaning.
Yes, it's Groucho Marx,
Oh, right. Okay.
one of my absolute favorite comedians.
Right.
I have all the Marx Brothers films on DVD.
Any last? How does it feel? How does it feel being interviewed like this? And is there any question that you would, having heard yourself say all this, is there another question you would ask yourself and share with us?
So I'm afraid it's part of my makeup and part of my ego. I enjoy talking about myself. I know it's a shocking thing to say, but it's true. It's something I've learned over the years, and telling jokes. I love telling jokes. I love telling stories and all this type of thing. So much so that when I am with my brothers, my brother Roy, if I'm about to start to say something, he will point at me and go, "No."
Right.
Brothers are like that. They know when you're trying to snow job them.
Yeah. Lovely. Well, Ray, thank you very much. It's been lovely to have you as our first interviewee. It's been quite a pleasure, actually. My feedback is that I never particularly admired Michael Parkinson, but I think it's quite interesting to be talking to somebody with a prepared list of questions and sort of dancing around the responses and seeing how it fits together. Parky must have had quite an interesting life getting to know people like this. It's a very nice way of interacting with someone and diving, not just engaging in casual pleasantries, but learning something about somebody's life. I think that's great.
Yeah.
So,
Patsy and I will be coming round to someone in the future to say, "Dear friend, can we interview you?" But there you go. Anyway, that is for a later date, because as I showed earlier, we have a full list for the rest of September, and next week it is Lee Taylor of the Quaker Africa Interest Group, and he's going to be talking of the works and also the news of reputations. That word.
Yeah.
And the redressing. Yeah, that's the one.
great.
Anyone else who can say the word better than me can have a go.
David and Ray, thank you so much. That was really, really interesting and entertaining.
It was.
Really was. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Well done, both of you.
Yeah.
Thank you, friends.
Thank you.
Not just reparations, but redressing inequalities. So,
All right.
Fellas.
we're going to have a fun topic next week. So, hope
Yes.
next week and others. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For the
Thank
rest-
you. Yeah. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.